Szanowni Państwo, godzina 10 wybiła. Witamy Państwa serdecznie
Ladies
na
and gentlemen, it is 10 a.m. exactly, so I would like to welcome you wholeheartedly to the Local Development Forum, yet another meeting with our partners from Switzerland. Today we're speaking about sustainable mobility in the practice of Swiss cities. And it will be hosted by Tomasz Kaiser and Łukasz Dąbrówka. Ladies and gentlemen, our seminars are performed within the framework of the Polish-Swiss City Development Program, and the webinar is hosted by the supporters of the Association of Polish Cities within the framework of the project component of predefined support for cities in effective use of the Swiss-Polish collaboration program. Traditionally, our meeting is translated into Polish Sign Language. Thomas, the problem of mobility in Poland has been developed over the course of time. I think what is very important, interesting, is to compare it with the Swiss experience. Yeah, especially that these transport and mobility plans are becoming obligatory, and I think this is the bloodstream of our societies. It is often the thing that decides of the possibilities of development of the cities they're functioning on a daily basis. The mobility has a direct influence on the quality of life. And from the perspective of cities, we see mobility not in the perspective of the city borders, administrative borders, but the entire local environment. So this Swiss environment that we will discuss today shows very well how it interplays with social mobility, with the spatial planning. We'll start with a broader perspective. The first presentation will speak about planning mobility in the Swiss system at the level of the federation, the cantons and the cities. So a very thorough perspective. Then we'll see how it looks, how it works in agglomerations, knowing that mobility does not limit itself to administrative borders, boundaries. And then we'll see how we can combine different transport systems, how to build integrated transit places, mobility hubs, etc. And we'll finish with a very interesting example of a city that aspires to be the cycling capital of Switzerland, not without reason, promoting cycling and calming, so to speak, the traffic in Bern. And I hope, as usual, our seminar will be not only interesting, but also an inspiration for practical ideas in the Polish cities. I think it sounds very enticing. So I would like to ask us to welcome the participants. We have Ms. Maren Korman, Managing Director, Head of the Project of the ENCO AG Project Manager, ENCO Urban Plan in Switzerland, Ms. Małgorzata Lublińska, Chief Specialist, Department of Aid Programs and Institutional Development Projects, Department of Aid Programs from the Ministry of Funds and Regional Policy, and Mr. Andrzej Porawski, Office Director, Association of the Polish Cities. Małgorzata Lublińska, Chief Specialist from the Ministry. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the great pleasure to welcome all of you to this seminar on behalf of the country coordinating institution in the Swiss program. Having been active for many years, thanks to the funding firstly from the Norwegian financial mechanism, and in the last few editions also from the Swiss program of financial aid, the forum has created a group of steady participants, mostly representatives of local governments, who find it an important source of knowledge. Today we have experts in the field of eco-friendly, sustainable transport in Swiss cities. It is a very important topic for us, not only from the cities themselves who applied for funding, for support in the Polish-Swiss city support program and are planning to introduce certain measures with this respect, but I believe it is an important topic for all the cities. The smaller and the larger ones that should perceive city transport strategically. Today, we have with us Ms. Isabel Scherer, Mr. Alberto Monticone, Mr. Dr. Philipp Stadler-Benz, and Florian Weiler. I'd like to especially welcome Ms. Maren Kornman, Managing Director, ENCO AG, Consortium, ENCO Urbaplan. On behalf of Maciej Ulak, Head of the Department of 8 programs, who cannot be here with us, unfortunately, since he's participating on the committee on the election of programs with regard to research and development. I'd like to thank all the speakers and participants, for whom we always do our best to discuss topics that are important and important and interesting in the moment. I wish you have an inspiring session. Now I'd like to pass the floor to Ms. Maren Kornman.
Thank you very much. Dear representatives of the Polish cities and municipalities, and also of the Ministry and of APC, I'm very happy to welcome you to this seminar today. My name is Maren Kornman. I'm the team leader of the Swiss Support Measure Partner in the Development of Towns program in Poland, and I represent the consortium of the 2 companies, ENCO and Urbaplan. Our mandate is to support the APC in the coming years by providing Swiss experience and making good examples from Switzerland available to the Polish cities. The focus today will be on a topic that concerns many municipalities in Europe. How can we transition to a sustainable, future-oriented mobility? In the recent years, Switzerland has developed a variety of approaches to harmonize transport, quality of life, and spatial planning. So governance structures targeted to support programs and close cooperation between the different levels play a certain role in this. The outstanding public transport system alone is known and appreciated beyond Switzerland's borders. But today we would like to present various approaches from Switzerland that contribute to sustainable transport policy. We already heard one important element is the agglomeration program for the regional context. In addition, also multimodal mobility hubs play an important role in creating seamless transport connections. But finally, making slow traffic more attractive is a key principle on local level. So, for example, by promoting cycling and traffic calming in urban areas. Our goal is to learn together, to benefit from each other, and take away ideas that can perhaps also be implemented in your city or municipality. And based on this, I wish you an inspiring seminar. Thank you very much.
Dziękujemy bardzo. Oddajemy głos panu Andrzejowi Porowskiemu, dyrektorowi biura.
Thank you so much. I'd like to pass the floor to Mr. Andrzej Porawski, Office Director of the Association of the Polish Cities. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another seminar, very interesting topic, but I think especially the approach is particular because it's multifaceted and it does show the entire scope of different contexts when we have to speak of mobility in the cities. We have to remind ourselves, first and foremost, that mobility is the first point of the European City Charter, adopted 39 years ago.
W wyniku realizacji przez Radę Europy takiego programu
because the Council of Europe adopted a program to elevate the quality of life in the cities, making them more resident-friendly, as well as friendly to other users of the city infrastructure. A very important context within which we're obliged in Poland since the very beginning, Polish municipalities. Yet the tools have been appearing slowly in the course of time. We've only had some of them. In the last years is the urbanization context, spatial management, in such a manner that it provides for easier movement, easier traffic, easier, more comfortable and possibly integrated manner that would approach it. The other contexts related, for example, with the fact that transport does not respect the administrative borders, so it should be planned on the basis of functional areas, not administrative areas, administrative boundaries. Well, the tool for planning these activities is still in the process of elaboration instead of just being in use. That's why the Swiss context might be particularly important for us, since mobility in Switzerland has been shaped on the basis of solid legal basis already some time ago, and I don't have to mention that the spatial context in Switzerland is particularly challenging. That's why the Swiss experience might be all the more useful in our context. And this is what I wish to you and to myself. A lot of good inspiration from these particularly interesting Swiss examples. Thank you so much. Before we start the content of the seminar, I'd like to thank you for welcoming all the participants. I'd like to mention one technical issue. In the Zoom session, you have the chat option. So I'd like to welcome you to ask questions to our speakers via the chat. In this seminar, we have assumed that the question and answer sessions will be held after each presentation. So please feel free to use the chat, and after the finished presentation, we'll go over the chat and we'll pass on the questions to our speakers. If there is no time, if we run out of time to answer all the questions, we'll try to do our best to answer these questions on the chat later on. But we'd like to be, as much as possible, to answer as many questions as possible during the seminar. So please feel free to use the chat. But I guess we can now start with the first speaker, Mr. Alberto Monticone, who's with us. Welcome, Alberto. We're happy to have you here. So, speaking of the first speaker, I would like to say that Mr. Alberto Monticone is director in the Transita company. It's a company which deals with counseling with respect to planning and managing mobility. He counsels many different cities, regions in Switzerland and beyond. He has an incredible knowledge. Today we'll have the opportunity to listen to him only for a very short time, and I always have this feeling, how much more could he share with us? But unfortunately, we only have 20 minutes to share the most important details. So this is our first presentation. So please introduce us to how the mobility management system works in Switzerland. Maren Kornmann has just said that one of the characteristics of the Swiss system is the strict collaboration between the central, regional, and city level. I believe that this coordination is a certain example to follow for us because it shows how much can be benefited if we collaborate well in these three levels at the same time. Alberto, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here and to open this journey on mobility practice in Switzerland. I will show my screen before. I hope you can see it. Okay. So thank you very much again. As already said, Transitec is a consulting company specialized in urban mobility, from planning. We work with public authorities from national level to municipal level, and we are based in Switzerland, but also in France, Portugal, and Morocco, and we work also in international level, so around the world. So I will introduce this journey on mobility practice with a general framework of mobility in Switzerland. So some key indicators, and then go before introduction mobility governance. Make a small introduction of the Swiss institutions because the organization is quite particular, and then we go further with an example of a Lausanne tramway project to see how this governance is applied in a local project. So about the general framework, first of all, I want to introduce the morphology and the distribution of population in the territory of Switzerland. We can see clearly that there is a difference between the northwest side of the territory, which we call the plateau, the Swiss plateau, where most of the people is concentrate on an axis from southwest to northeast, so from Geneva to Zurich, passing by Lausanne and Bern, and then we see Basel in the north side, and then the south part, which is mostly occupied by the Swiss Alps, of course less possibility to the urban settlements, and so where the density of people is much lower. In the south of the Swiss Alps, there is also the canton of Ticino, which is this part. I don't know if you see my mouse, where there is also a number of people, inhabitants important. The skeleton of the Swiss transport network is composed by the national road network and the railway network that we see in the next slide. What we see from the national road network, that is composed by 2,200 kilometers, and of course it covers all the territory, but is more densified on the plateau, where the most inhabitants live. And if we compare with the Swiss railway network, what we see that the railway network is very dense and much longer than the national road network, because the railway network is composed by 5,000 kilometers, or more than 2.5 of the kilometers of the national road network. Of course, these include also the regional railway network, but if we compare with the railway network managed by the Swiss Federal Railways, so the SBB, it's still higher the railway network with 3,000 kilometers than the national road network, so 30% more. So the density of the offer, so the density of the railway network, of course, make it's a great advantage to using the train, and we see that Swiss people is the European champion of using the train, or train use. On both indicators, the train trips per inhabitant and the kilometers traveled by train per capita. What we see that despite of the small size of the country, Swiss people are make the most kilometers traveled by train. If we compare with much bigger country like France, Germany, or Italy, we see that Swiss people make much more kilometers by train. And if we compare with Poland, we can see that Swiss people make 3.5 times more kilometers by train than Polish. Another particularity of Swiss general framework is the ownership of equipment and travel cards. And of course, if the Swiss people use a lot the train, it means that they own also different travel cards. But I wanted to highlight the particularity of two national travel cards, which are quite interesting. The first is the half-fare travel card, which is owned by 35 5%, so by a third part of the inhabitants in Switzerland, which is a very interesting travel card because with a small amount of money per year, you can pay half of the price of the normal single ticket for your trips. And another travel card, which is quite interesting, is the general abonnement for all the different transport company, public transport company in the country. So with around 4,000 Swiss francs per year, you can travel on all the different transport offer in Switzerland without any limit. And then it's also interesting to see that there is more than 20% of households that not own a private car, and most of the same percentage of households own a bicycle or electric bicycles. I must say that I'm sure that the rate of the ownership of electric bicycle is much higher now, because this is a statistic of 2021, and in the last years the buying of electric bicycles is exploding. Another element that influence and simplify a lot the using of public transport is the one ticket, one journey principle. What does it mean? It means that the traveler can use any mean of transport of the 2050 transport company operating in Switzerland. So bus, trains, cable cars, tramway, metro, boats, and so on. And so, for example, one person going from home in Geneva to its destination in Bern must buy only one ticket, even if this person will use, first of all, a tram line for going to from home to the train station. Then it operated the tram line operated by the Geneva Public Transport Company, and then it will take a train operating by the SBB from Geneva to Bern, and then for finishing its trip to Bern, it will take a bus, and so with only one ticket, the person have the access all the different companies of public transport, and you can imagine how it's simple and easy to access to the trips on public transport with this system. And on plus, moreover, the final price with the single ticket, it will be lower than buying 3 single ticket for individually. We have also this kind of system in the regional level. So there are also kind of 20 fair communities, fair transport communities in Switzerland, where you can buy travel cards all in the region, and you can use all the different transport operation for each region. For finishing the general framework, I want to share the modal shift on the main Swiss cities and try to make some takeaways from the situation of the urban environment on mobilities. So we see that walking is the main mode of transport for each cities. For cycling, there is a great variety of using from one city to another. So we see Bern and Basel, which arrived to up to 20% of the trips made by bikes. And then there are some other cities in the middle and some others where bikes are still the modal shift of bikes is still very low, like Lugano, for example, or Lausanne, which is a very hilly city. But with the electric bikes, the modal share of bicycles also is improving a lot in the last years. What we see also that the individual motorized transport, so the using of cars or motorbike, is the minority in most of the city, except for Lugano, where this modal share in violet reach up to 50% of the trips made by individual motorized transport. Now to go further, I will make a short introduction of the organization of the Swiss institutions. So first of all, Switzerland is a confederation composed by 26 cantons and more than 2,000 municipalities. In Switzerland, there is almost 9 million inhabitants, and the cantons are very different between one to another for the size, as you can see from this map, but also from the number of inhabitants. So we can pass from the canton of Zurich, which covers almost between 15 and 20% of the inhabitants of the entire country, to canton very small, like the smallest is Appenzeller Innerrhoden, which has only 16,000 inhabitants. So we can see very different situations between the cantons themselves. The cantons are a part very important of the country, because in the Swiss constitution it says that the cantons are the sovereign of or their territory, and they will delegate to Swiss Confederation some responsibilities. So with the principle of the precedence of federal laws, but the cantons have and keep a lot of power. So each canton is a state with its own parliament, government, laws, constitution, identity, languages. There are 4 official languages in Switzerland, religions, and so on. So anything that is not explicitly delegated to the federal government is the responsibility of the cantons. For example, the education, the hospitals, the roads, but we see how the roads are managed in the further part of the presentation. The security, so the police, in exception of the army, the fiscal control, and many other responsibility. But between the cantons and the municipalities, there is no any other official institutional level in Switzerland, but there are the agglomeration, which are perimeters geographically defined, and they serve as a basis for certain planning and funding programs. So we see the representation of the agglomeration here, and what we can see that they go farther the borders of the cantons, but also of the country. So, for example, Basel, you see the urban agglomeration of Basel is including not only Switzerland, but also Germany and France, or the same for Geneva, that including the canton of Geneva, some territory of France, but also some territory of the canton of Vaud. We see with the presentation of Isabelle why these agglomerations are also important in these planning and funding programs. And now we can focus more on the mobility governance in Switzerland. So we've seen that there are 3 institutional levels, so the confederation, the cantons, and the municipalities. And in principle, each institutional level is responsible for its own laws, policies, networks, and funding. And these principles are applied also for all the aspects of mobility. So for managing and planning and maintaining all the networks that are for roads, railway, active mobility, or transportation by air or by water. So all these subject by the federal constitution, the federal and the state laws. And if we take an example, a simple example for the road network, it means the confederation manage the national road network, the cantons, the states manage the state roads, and the municipalities manage the municipal road network. This means that, of course, it's necessary to have a perfect coordination between the different institutional levels. And this is made by the sectoral transport plans, which are the strategic instruments for national coordination of road, rail, air, and water transport. These plans set the framework for the long-term development of the Swiss transport system and give a vision for the planning of the different territories that compose Switzerland. It aims to have an optimal coordination between urban development and transport, because we know that is very related how people move with the way of the territory is developed, and it allows to have a perfect combination, a coordination between the different modes of transport. And this coordination so has different aspects, so different means of transport, coordination between urban development and transport, a coordination between the institutional levels, so between the federal government, the cantons government, and the municipalities. And of course, the aims of this transport plan is to reduce the environmental impact of mobility. If we go to the transport financing system, this image quite complex. Want to show how the at national level is organized the financing of development of the networks, the maintenance, and the operation. We see here in the center 2 big categories of funding. So the fundings for railway infrastructure and the fundings for national road and agglomeration transport fund, that are these 3 funds, but that are organized in 2 different categories. So for railway and for transport private traffic, are funds mostly by the Confederation with general income taxes and with specific federal and transport taxes, also specific for transport. Then cantons contributes also, but only directly to the railway infrastructure. And then there are other small products like emission sanctions or different revenues from mineral oil, for example, that also participate to the funding of the road network. And then these funds will allocate the resources for the development of the infrastructure, so the railway infrastructure or national roads, but also for freight traffic, and mostly 10% of these funds will go to finance the local project with the agglomeration traffic program, which will be introduced sooner by Isabelle. I will end my presentation with the example of the Lausanne tramway project. So first of all, the context of this new tramway line in the Lausanne agglomeration. So it's part of a general integrated main public transport network composed by metro lines, two metro lines, and a third one, which is plan in planning. There is a regional railway line that arrives also to the center of Lausanne. Some other BRT lines which irrigate the territory, and then the tramway line, which is the red one here, going from the center of the city of Lausanne, and this serving 5 different municipalities from Lausanne to the west part, so the border of the urban dense area of the agglomeration. So 5 different municipalities are concerned by this project, which is long 7.6 kilometers and have 16 stations planned today. Why this project is important? Because is part of an overall mobility strategy for all the agglomeration of Lausanne-Morges that we see here in image. And we see here on the yellow surface the dense area of the urban of the agglomeration of Lausanne and Morges, and the tramway is part of this mobility project and urban development project, because along the tram there are also the densification of the territory, and this is why it's an important measure included in the Lausanne-Morges agglomeration project, and this is why this project is partly financed by the agglomeration funds. Before going in the technical part of the governance and funding of this project, I want to show some images of the project, also to go a little bit more in the concrete part. And we see from this image that the public space is mostly dedicated to non-motorized transport and public transport. So the tram with the tramway path in the center of the road, with only one way per direction for the private car, cycle path on the side, and general sidewalks with vegetation on the side part of the public space. I made also some other images. This is an example of a station where vegetation is also important. So we'll plant also some trees on the platform of the stations. And here an overview from the sky of the project, where we can see that also bus lines can go to the railway platform, so the tramway platform, and so they can also be improved by the project. This slide, which is not very easy to understand just like this, it's want to show how in this project the different level of the institutions are involved. So this is a local project and it's a railway project. So it means that the canton is the project manager, so has the responsibility to develop the project. And the particularity of the canton of Vaud, the state, so the office of the cantons, have delegated the work of the development of the project to the public transport of Lausanne region, so the public transport company, local public transport company. But they do this job for the canton, which is the final responsible of the project. The federal state is the ultimate authority to validate the project. So as it is a railway project, the Federal Office of Transport will analyze all the project, will make the remarks, it can ask to modify, to adapt the project, and it will give the authorization to build the project. And at the end, municipalities, so 5 municipalities concerned by this project, are involved in the project design. Of course, because the project is on their territory, but also because at the end, they will be the owners of a part of the structure that are built with this project. So the municipalities will be the owner of the for the public use and shared space between the tramway and the public domain. So the roads, the pedestrian sidewalk, the cycle path, the vegetation strips on the section of municipal and cantonal roads in urban areas. So they will be the owner of a big part of the project. Then the other big owner of the infrastructure and the equipment that will be built will be the company of public transport, so the public transport for Lausanne region, which will be the owner of all the technical equipment and the infrastructure related to the tramway. And the canton at the end, who is the project manager of the entire project, will be the owner only of the sections of cantonal road located outside urban areas. So a very small part. And the federal level will be the owner of anything. About the financing of this tramway project, as I said, the Confederation participates of the financing of this project with a non-refundable contribution of 30% of the estimated cost. Why? Because this measure is part of this overall strategic mobility strategy planning of the agglomeration, and this is why the Confederation give a contribution of 1/3 of the cost of the investment. The canton of Vaud finance the infrastructure component of the tramway and the studies, so mostly the most part of the project. And the municipalities, what do they pay? They pay only the added value resulting from specific developments projects requested by them. For example, if there is a small public space, public square along the tramway line, and for the municipality it's important to develop a coherence of public space between the tramway line and this small square, the municipality can ask to add this square to the main project, and then the municipality will pay the cost of building this part of this project that will be included in the main studies. So the studies will be paid by the canton, but the municipality will pay the investment for building this part. There are also some other funders of the project, which are the owners of the network, so water, telecommunications, energy network, are partly financed by the property owners of the networks. So this was for the investment, but the operating costs then will be assumed by the project owners. So the tram operator, so the public transport of Lausanne region, for concerning the operating of the tramway line, but the canton and the municipalities will pay, of course, the maintenance of their network, so the cycle path, the sidewalks, the vegetations, and the road network. I will end my presentation with just an overview of the breakdown of operating expenses. So on the canton of Vaud, there is a law which is called the Law on Mobility and Public Transport that identified two types of subsidies for mobility projects. So the investment subsidies and the operating subsidies. So the investment subsidies concern the funding for infrastructure and vehicles also, and also the measures to improve accessibility for people with disabilities. And then we focus a little bit more on the operating subsidies that will cover the operating deficits of public transport, the financial charges, and also the implementation of what I introduced at the beginning of this fare integration system, so the fare communities. If we focus on the operating deficits, there is a separation between the regional lines and the urban lines. So the canton will assume 70% of the deficit of the regional lines, instead of municipalities that will cover only 30% for this kind of lines. And in the urban lines, the proportion is more equilibrated. So municipalities will assume 50% or more the deficit of the operating costs, and the canton of Vaud up to 50%, and then it depends on some parameters which are more technical, and then we don't have the time to expose here. So I will thank you for your attention, and I'm here available for any question that you have on this subject.
Alberto, bardzo dziękuję. Mamy na czacie dwa pytania, które teraz ci przeczytam.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I have two questions on the chat. The first one, what kind of incentives, and if there are any, to use the public transport, and how the less urbanized areas are communicated with areas that are much more urbanized? For example, where you have the healthcare, culture offer, etc. So how do you connect the not so urbanized places when they want to travel to places with such objectives as health and culture areas? How do you do that? But do you have any special reductions that would motivate, incent the inhabitants to use the public transport? So, and one more question is, could you please explain what is the percentage of the cost of the public transport that is covered by the tickets bought by the travelers? So, what part of the public transport is financed directly by the tickets, and which one is financially helped by the local government or the central government?
Yes, thank you for your questions. So the incentives to use public transport, there are many, and not only on the tarification. In Switzerland, there are some we'll see, let's say, discount for different users. So, for example, for children's or for people in retired, but there is no gratuity, completely gratuity or free public transport for all the people like there is in some other countries. Why? And maybe this I can relate it also to the third question. So the percentage of cost of public transport tickets. It depends. So there is not only a rate for all the different networks, but we can say that mostly 30% of the costs are covered by the tickets, and the rest is subsidized by the public authorities. But the incentives of use public transport are different also, and I want to highlight that is not only the tarification, but also the policy of the other means of transport. So you can incentives to use public transport, also managing the public space offer for private cars, for example. So and this is very important in Switzerland, there are some laws to reduce the spaces for parking spots for cars in the urban area. And in this way, of course, if people has not the possibility to park their car, the use of public transport will be more convenient. And the other very important incentives to use public transport is that, and I can relate it also with the second questions, that even the rural area are always connected with a public transport line. We have seen the density of the railway in Switzerland, and we have very small villages with a train station operating, with different lines operating. So I must say that all the territory, even the rural territory, is deserved by the public transport. And this is another very important incentive to use the public transport, because of course some people is obliged to use private car, but it can be a minority of the people. And so the second question is, it was about how to deserve the rural area and connect rural area with also urban area. There are also some strategy to reach these people that, of course, with small density cannot be deserved with very high offer of public transport, but with the park and ride, for example, infrastructure, it can be an option to give the possibility the people living in this rural area to use their car to reach the first train station available, and then to finish the trip by train and by public transport. There are also some examples of transport on demand. So there is a kind of offer of public transport which is not a typical offer, so very rigid with a line, with the schedule, but with the possibility to call the central of the company of public transport, and then book a trip, and then the company will make a schedule and a path to reach the need of moving of every person, but not in a soft way, so in a very agile way. Let's see.
Bardzo dziękuję. Jest kolejne pytanie na czacie, ale to pytanie
Thank you very much. We have one more question, but we will answer that on the chat, so because we have no more time for answers now. Thank you very much for your presentation and for this very interesting showing us the complexity of the system, the financing, and the model of functioning an area planning, urban planning. At the beginning, our Chief Officer Porawski has mentioned how much connected it is one to another, and also Alberto has announced that we will have the opportunity to listen to it more in details in our next presentation. Isabel Scherer is here with us, the head of the Agglomeration Transport Department and Federal Office for Spatial Development. Welcome, Isabel. And the dimension that we have already seen, the three-level planning, was we saw a very interesting motive about agglomerations, and this is, I hope, something that you will make us more familiar with thanks to your presentation, since it seems a very interesting solution. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, everybody. Hello, from Switzerland, from Bern. I like to open my presentation. One moment. Can you see it?
Czekamy jeszcze chwilkę. Widzimy, że jesteśmy w trakcie. Ładuje się.
We are waiting a moment for that. It seems it is uploading.
Trzeba zaznaczyć na ekranie i potwierdzić, udostępnij, kliknąć.
You should confirm it on your screen that you want to share your presentation. So maybe there should be a special button. Oh, now we can see it. Yes, yes, that's perfect.
Can I see it? Okay, perfect. Good. I'm very happy and honored to present you the agglomeration program for transport and urban development. We have two perspectives which deal with the agglomeration program. On the one side, it's the federal government. The federal government uses the agglomeration program as a coordination and steering instrument. And on the other side of the agglomeration, they use the instrument for planning and implementation. The implementation is the most important thing for us to encourage to better the situation on the total between transport and urban development. First of all, I want to start with the initial situation in Swiss concerning transport and settlement or development. I never know how to translate it correctly. Is it settlement or development? In Switzerland is still growing in population, in economic, in settlement areas, but also it's increasing in mobility, traffic volumes, and traffic bottlenecks. That's why the increasing pressure on the open spaces is still a result of this development, and this we have to deal with. And special planners always call for a solution to coordinate better both of them, urban transportation and urban development. The federal government always has an interaction or has to interact between traffic and space. And this is an important topic for the federal government to coordinate and to align both of them. The Ministry of Environment, Traffic, Energy and Communication in Swiss is responsible for transport and special planning policy. And there we have a master plan. It's called, or it's named, Mobility and Spatial Development 2050. It's an overall transport coordination plan, and this plan guides us for our work on the national level, how to decide where the future people will live, work, recreate, and how they will get there. The main challenge for us at the federal level is that that we can plan the national infrastructure on road and railway, as Alberto explained it before, but we can't plan the urban development, which is in the responsibility of the cantons. That's our big challenge, that spatial planning is not at the national level. No. Too quick. So one again. Next slide. As I said it before, the mobility is further increasing. You can see here the outlook of 2050 according to the Swiss Traffic Prospect. And you see the shift of passengers and freight transport. And two aspects I want to mention is, and this is really new, that on the bottom you see the commuter trips. They will decrease for 2050 for 13%. And on the other side, you see the light commercial vehicle, which will increase heavily for a plus of 58%. In Swiss have special policy for agglomeration, the federal agglomeration policy. And it deals with the main aspects of spatial and economic, because the agglomeration are in Switzerland the economic engines, the motor to develop. And that's why we have developed this policy. And in this policy, we have defined the agglomeration as an area, a region specially focused on, created by a method where the cities are the core of the agglomeration. You can see it on the right side of the slide. Here, the red thing is the city, and around it's the functional area, which is arranged with the core city. And this is the definition of the agglomeration in Switzerland. And the result of this method is actually the map on the left side, where you see Switzerland with all the yellow to the red areas, which are all defined as the perimeter of the agglomeration, who can benefit from this co-financing, which is offered by the government to receive money for transport projects. The instrument or the program that helps governments to guide the coordination of transport and urban development is the program Agglomeration Traffic. The federal government supports the agglomeration which have difficulties to finance their expensive transport projects. The agglomeration program is a bottom-up planning of each agglomeration. And on the topic of transport and urban settlement, and each agglomeration has every 4 years the possibility to propose for this co-financing. And this application we call generation. And now in this year, we have the agglomeration have the possibility to build it the 5th time a program to the federal government and demand for co-financing. And this process, which now starts, that's the federal evaluation process, which I want to explain a little bit more. But first of all, the financing concept of the program Agglomeration Traffic is an incentive system where the Swiss cantons, in the name of the agglomeration, receive money from the state if they establish a program, an agglomeration program, which consists of efficient traffic projects and urban development, projects, as well as landscape projects. but the agglomeration or the canton receive only money for the transport infrastructure project. And if the Confederation finds these proposal of project interesting, they co-finance this project with a rate of 30 in between to 50%. The other projects like operation and maintenance, urbanization project, landscape project, they have to pay by their own. So the most of the part of a program, the agglomeration have to pay by their own. If you want to know the details, which traffic projects are co-financed by the Swiss government each 4 years, you will find the details here on this slide. Today, the program and the side of the financing, the agglomeration traffic, is a success story for coordination and collaboration between the 3 levels we have in Switzerland: national, cantonal, and the municipality or community level. And incentive give money for the infrastructure transport projects to set on order to coordinate this with the inward urban development. I said it before, we are now in the process of the evaluation of each program. And the program consists of 4 criteria, where my team and I and other officers who are responsible for this process evaluated it in the same way. First criteria is the improvement of transport system. Second is the promotion of inward urban development. Third, it's the increase of traffic safety. And fourth, it's the reduction of environment impact and resource consumption. These criteria are evaluated basically on qualitative methods with some help of quantitative methods. The detail of these criteria, you find it on the slide here. Here is the translation. It's just because it's a quality method we use which is accepted by the policy to evaluate the program. It helps us to find a quality treatment for all the agglomeration programs, to determine how well the transport and inward settlement is coordinated in each agglomeration. And we express this evaluation by a cost-benefit ratio, and as I mentioned before, with a rate between 30 and 50%. So how does an agglomeration program looks like? Every 4 years, I said it before, the agglomeration can submit a program to the federal government. This process of evaluation on the side of the government takes 2 years in total till the parliament decides which projects are co-financed or not. The agglomeration must jointly develop and their agglomeration program in 6 building blocks or 6 components. To submit it at the federal office first, if an agglomeration program it has already been submitted, the information of the status of implementation of the previous generation must be provided. Second, the analysis of the situation and trend must be presented in the agglomeration program that the federal government or the offices who evaluate are able to understand their specific initial situation in each agglomeration. Third, the vision, one big picture of their overall development on transport and inward urban development must be reflected. Fourth, an update of the need of action must be presented, the focus of the actual generation, because you can't solve all the problems in the city by one. So we work in generation to continue, and here we want to know in each generation how to focus on. Next step is the sub-strategies in transport and urbanization is often connected with landscape in their strategies. And finally, and most important, the project of that offers the solution of the perspective of the agglomeration to avoid, connect, shift, and actually regulate mobility in the line with urban development. On the right side, you see an actual picture from the 1st of April of 18 agglomeration programs, which are already deposed on the 5th generation. We are actually in the 5th generation with this evaluation program, where further 24 programs will arrive in June. So to give a little more impression how an agglomeration program in the content looks like, it's the vision you can see here from the program from Geneva. It's a program France and Switzerland together, where the agglomeration explain in this slide or in this map how they want to coordinate the urbanization in red and the traffic or transport modes in the perimeter of the agglomeration. To give a little bit of feeling about the cost we are speaking with, because they get money, co-funding. Geneva in the 4th generation, this is this example of the 4th generation, demanded the co-finance of transport infrastructure of 520 million Swiss francs. In the following evaluation process, the government accepted 420 million francs for co-financing at a rate of 33%, same as Lausanne, for example. So the majority of the project costs they have to finance by themselves. In exact figures, the state gave, by acceptance of this project, 130 million Swiss francs to Geneva for their quality work of coordination, all modes of transport and inward urban development. And here, second, here you see the sub-strategies on urban development from Geneva to 2040, and on the right side, the sub-strategy public transport and motorized individual transport, how they will arrange to achieve that transport and urban development is better coordinated. And the important thing about this strategy work in the agglomeration is across the entire agglomeration with borders. A concept is agreed upon, a hard discussion how they want to develop, and especially in the terms of transport, which is partly financed by the government, but totally on settlement, where they have to arrange it in the cantons and in the community. Another example of an successful implementation is the Limmatal Railway, where, and this is the map on the left side, where the agglomeration explained to the government how they would like to have this public transport to network, and how they want to get a shift on the right side here from the motorized individual transport to public transport. And they explained it very good in 4 different ways with this Limmatal railway station in Zurich, how they want to have the accessibility with this transport in the valley, in the urbanization, how to get the accessibility to be better with this flagship transportation project, and also an explanation how they integrate the landscape, the environmental situation here in this project. And to speak also in cost, in total cost for the Limmatalbahn, they demanded 540 million Swiss francs, and they received from the government to bring it into operation 190 million Swiss francs for this coordination of transport and urban settlement. And I've brought you a lot of examples which this program has already co-financed and met in operation their projects. If you see all the, we have in total 4 generations at the moment, and if you see the percentage on the different modes, you have 30% on public transport like trams and buses, on road infrastructure also 30% here, the bridge and this road, or the pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure, for example, here. And another example, the hubs, which are normally 10% of the costs given by the state for hub infrastructure. Here you can see the Limmatalbahn already in operation, for example, in all regions in agglomeration in Switzerland. And finally, I want to give an overview of the total since the beginning. Over 6.5 billion Swiss francs co-funding were lent by the federal stage, which goes into the project of all transport modes, as I explained it before. Perhaps here you see the development in which mode it went, and especially walking or pedestrians and cycling is increasing more and more over generations. And this is, in our point of view, a way how to better densify, to be more sustainable, and to get better mixture in cities and regions. That's already I'm at the end of my speech, where last work from the part of the federation, the continuity in working together to increase mobility, or to decrease the mobility and make a shift to public transport and pedestrian and cycling infrastructure is an important goal for this program, and to better arrange it with the urban inward development. This is an important factor. We work together with the agglomeration together better with landscape and the functionality of mobility and urban development. Thank you very much.
Izabel, bardzo dziękuję. Włączcie mnie.
Isabel, thank you very
Izabel, bardzo
much
dziękujemy.
for your
To
presentation.
było takie znakomite pokazanie,
This was a
jak
very
łączymy
nice,
planowanie przestrzenne
great showing
z
how the
planowaniem i zarządzaniem
urban landscape
mobilnością.
planning is
Ale ten
coordinated
przykład też
with the
pokazał,
mobility, but
skąd biorą
your
się
example
te
has also
rozwiązania w
showed us
aglomeracjach, z których
where do
jesteśmy
those
dumni,
solutions come from that
ale
we are so
jak
proud
jest to
of,
umiejętne
and also
połączenie
how
różnych kryteriów,
well
różnych
they
funduszy
are
i różnych
combining
poziomów
different
zarządzania.
criterions and
Ja
different
tylko
levels of
pamiętam
financing and
twoją
management.
wypowiedź podczas seminarium,
And
gdzie
I
chciałaś
remember
uwagę, że
you
efekty widać
saying
dopiero
that the
w
effects
dłuższym
might
okresie
be
czasu.
seen in long
Mówimy o
term,
aglomeracji,
not in
czteroletnich
short term.
interwałach
So
i
we are talking
rzeczywiście
about
wymaga
4-year periods,
dłuższego
and
okresu.
it really
Tam jest
requires a
koordynowanie
longer
pracy, żeby
term
takie
and
efekty,
long-term
móc
coordination to see the
Na
effects.
samym początku Alberto
So,
Monticello
ladies
powiedział
and
nam, że
gentlemen,
to,
at the
co
beginning,
cechuje
Alberto has said that
system szwajcarski,
what
to
is
między
particular
innymi
for
bardzo duża
Switzerland is that a
gęstość
very
sieci kolejowej.
high density of railway
Nie mogłoby
network.
zabraknąć dzisiaj z nami
So
osoby,
this is
która
why
jest związana
we
z kolejami.
cannot
Pan Filip Stadler
miss
Benz,
today our
kierownik
very
projektu
important
Mobility Hubs
guest,
w szwajcarskich kolejach federalnych,
Philippe
będzie
Stadler-Benz.
naszym następnym prezenterem.
He will be
Będzie
our next
mówił o
speaker.
tym, jak łączymy
He
różne
will
rodzaje
tell us how we
transportu.
combine
Oczywiście
different
w
types of
szczególności jak
transport.
łączymy kolej z
So
innymi
especially
sposobami
with a special
transportowymi. A
focus
więc będziemy
with
mogli o
railway,
gazach
with
przesiadkowych,
other ways
które
of transport.
pozwalają
So
na
we will be talking
spójne
about
łączenie
mobility
różnych
hubs
środków transportu.
that
I będzie
enable
szerzej
us
mówił
to
o tym,
combine
jak
different
łączymy
transport, and he will tell us
możliwość
in a
dojazdu
complex
różnymi
way
środkami
how can
od
we
drzwi do drzwi,
combine
gdzie kolej zajmuje
commuting
różnorodną
from
trasę,
door to door in
bezpośrednio do
using different
mieszkania,
ways of
a więc musi
transport.
być umiejętnie
So there
połączona
must be a
z
very
innymi
good
transportu.
connection between different types of transport. So,
Chętnie oddaję Ci głos.
Filipe,
Zapraszam
the
do
floor is
wystąpienia.
yours.
Thank you very much. I'm going to upload the presentation. I hope that worked.
Great.
Perfect. Thank you very much for the invitation, and also my best regards to Poland. My name is Filip Stadler-Benz, and I work at the Swiss Federal Railways, SBB, in the first and last mile department. For the last few years, I've been able to work part-time, and which has given me the opportunity to do my doctorate at ETH Zurich in my spare time on mobility hubs. Whoop. Sorry. That was too quick. Okay. So I will start with some words about SBB, Swiss Federal Railways. Our company is divided into 5 divisions: market and production of passenger transport, real estate, infrastructure, and freight services. This makes us a fully integrated railway company. We transport around 1.3 million passengers and 175,000 tons of goods every day. And Switzerland, as you already heard, has currently a population of around 9 million persons. I don't want to go into detail with all these numbers and just focus on one, which is important for the next slides. We have approximately 800 stations owned by SBB, and some of them, or maybe most of them, they shall be transformed into mobility hubs in the next years. As I said in the beginning, I work in the first and last mile department. We are a team of around 15 employees. But why is the subject of first and last mile in passenger transport so important also for SBB? It is because we all work together to ensure good public mobility in Switzerland. But even in our country, with excellent offers for public transport, only 20% of trips are combined and 80% are still monomodal, with a high proportion of transport with privately owned cars. So when I started at the SBB a couple of years ago, it was said that the train should always be in the center of a journey and be combined. But that has changed a little bit. And today, even for us, it's absolutely fine to make a journey by car. However, our aim is not to have to own a car if possible. And if this is the case, sooner or later, our customers will be on the train anyway, because we have very attractive offers for long journeys and also for journeys abroad. So our team is responsible for topics that are not rail related, but rather for connecting mobility. This includes parking and sharing issues. On the parking side, we are one of the largest parking lot owners in Switzerland with around 35,000 parking spaces. But however, we are currently focusing heavily on parking spaces for two-wheeled vehicles, bicycles, as the number of customers who come to the railway station by bicycle is steadily increasing. On the sharing side, on the right side, on-demand transport is what was already mentioned also today, is the most innovative topic, I guess. This year, we are also launching a pilot project with self-driving vehicles to supplement public transport where there is still potential for improvement in terms of connectivity. So, however, more than half of our customers are coming to our railway stations on foot. That's why we have finally launched also a specialist group on this topic. So during my doctoral thesis on mobility hubs, the questions I have been asked most frequently in the recent years is what exactly is a mobility hub? Or what is the difference between a railway station and a mobility hub? Well, of course, as the term already suggests, mobility hubs are all about mobility and making it efficient, safe, and pleasant, also to switch between the modes of transport, as well as linking the settlement system with the transport system. Yes. But it's not just about mobility. It's also about the quality of life for travelers coming to a railway station or to have leisure time at the railway station. But it's even more than that. Mobility hubs also include services ranging from shops, selling drinks, food, magazines, etc., and also restaurants, apartments, and workplaces. So in the end, mobility hubs are also about compact, mixed urban development with a high density of uses around them. That offers a wide range of advantages for sustainable development. But many actors are involved in development of railway stations as mobility hubs, and most of them have different perspectives on the topic. As a result, there are often uncoordinated and sometimes conflicting interests between the actors. And an important step is therefore to structure this complex problem. So this simple figure that you see here helps to understand the interaction between the different levels regarding a mobility hub. We see the long-term and national development on the left side with typically actors from railway infrastructure. Their aim is to reduce bottlenecks in the railway net, for example, to reduce travel times or to provide more capacity on the railway network. On the local development, on the right side, there are typically actors from the real estate sector, the local transport company, and the municipality, aiming for the best local solution for the residents and also for our customers. But both of these are challenging problems already in their own right. But there's even a middle layer, a middle level is also needed to ensure that the local development takes place in a way that optimizes the overall system. And on the other hand, it also ensures that the local conditions, political feasibility in cities and municipalities, and technological feasibility are taken into account in regional and national developments. So if you look closer, let us focus on the local level on the right side of the previous slide. The development of a mobility hub typically involves multiple projects of multiple actors, as I said before. They're coming with the different perspectives, the national perspective, regional, and the local perspectives. And they have also different drivers, for example, the capacity increase, safety, enforcing the disability law in Switzerland, area development, etc. And this comes all together at a railway station or a mobility hub and in the surrounding area. And all these projects have different investment volumes, planning processes, for example, different schedules, approval procedures, and implementation times, and with different start and also different completion dates. So the different time horizons represent a major challenge for the cooperation. So rail infrastructure planning, for example, requires a very long lead time and must be based on assumptions about urban development or mobility services that have not yet been confirmed. So ongoing coordination between projects is therefore crucial during a rolling development for many years. So this is how it should like. When transforming railway stations and their surroundings into mobility hubs, numerous actors with different views and functional requirements, they should come together. It requires cooperation across different administrative levels, as we already heard before, and also across different scales and also sectors. However, due to the limited competences and shared responsibilities, no single actor bears the overall responsibility for the transformation. So therefore, intensive cooperation and ideally co-creation by key actors is crucial. However, the methods that we have available today are proving insufficient to facilitate the co-creation of mobility hubs. Some methods, such as a test planning method, work intensively on the design over a long period of time with several teams working in parallel, including the necessary technical expertise. But however, due to the effort and the cost involved in such a planning tool, this method can only be used for larger projects, of course. And in addition, it is a one-off approach that does not address the need for rolling planning. For example, if changes or difficulties arise over time during implementation, the method cannot simply be repeated because of the effort involved. What is needed is a simple method that can be used on an ongoing basis and that can cope with changing responsibilities. The functional model method generally describes mobility hubs as places in settlement where 5 different main functions interact. We have function 1, linking settlements and rail systems, function 2, enabling change of means of transportation, function 3, enabling commercial use, 4, providing public space, and 5, shaping the identity of the location. This model allows for a structured discussion. So all the actors working at a particular mobility hub can use the functional model to form a common picture on a functional level, of which main and sub-functions seem important to them for their mobility hub at a certain locality. Such a site-specific picture can be created for different time horizons. For example, today, to start with, and 5 years, in 15 years. In this way, a functional visions can be developed. Specified functional model can, for example, form part of the basis for functional specifications in urban planning studies, site diagnostics, and also in dialogue and participatory processes with the non-organized public. It also can be used to structure and record the discussions of a working group working on the transformation of a railway station into a mobility hub, as shown in this example. As a preliminary task, the participants each developed a model that they coordinated within their organization. They adapted and colored the model, the functions of the model according to their priorities. And in a joint workshop, the participants presented their models one after the other. And a subsequent discussion, a common functional model was developed, and premises were recorded, and possible synergies and conflicts between the functions were worked out. As you can see in the picture, well, we had more conflicts than synergies. So coming back to our role in the first and last mile unit of SBB. As actors, we are trying to ensure that when transforming railway stations into mobility hubs, the right priority is given to mobility areas in terms of size and proximity to platforms, and also for the right modes of transport. So thank you very much for your attention, and I look forward if you have any questions or comments or advices from your side.
Dziękujemy bardzo za przedstawienie tego ważnego wymiaru, jeśli chodzi o...
Thank you very much for sharing this important dimension with regard to the role of railway transport. As you said, the city collaborates with the extra areas surrounding the city. Is a very important element that makes public transport more available, just as we could learn from your presentation. Right now, with regard to questions regarding railway transport, we don't see any questions yet. If they appear, we'll be back with you. But we have a slightly different question. How do you choose the authorities of the agglomeration? So I guess it's a question to the previous speaker. We hope to provide the answer via the chat, but we'll be back with you as soon as railway-related questions appear. Thank you very much for this interesting presentation. And since we had the opportunity to listen about railway transport, which is all the more interesting because in Poland this diverse geography poses different challenges to the railway development. But what is a common part, a shared part with regard to railway, it allows to strengthen the matter related with cycling, because it provides the possibility to use the urban space. And I see Mr. Florian Weiler with us from the Pedestrian and Bicycle Traffic Department in Bern, but also the Polish experience is that many people living in further metropolitan areas use railway in order to use fully the city, the urban infrastructure. So we have this intermodality in a full dimension, but to make it all the more welcoming, it is important to find other ways to strengthen city mobility. And we've had the opportunity from the previous presentation, a graph showing different forms of transport depending on their on the metropolitan area in Switzerland. So we see how these activities over time are important, especially in this dimension, to strengthen the use of cycling. So let's learn how it is done in Bern.
Okay, I hope you can hear me and can see my presentation.
Widzimy prezentację, słyszymy. Oddajemy głos Florianie.
Very good. So, yeah, my name is Florian Wieler, and I'll be talking to you about cycling promotion and traffic calming in Bern. I work for the Department of Traffic Planning and specifically for the unit responsible for foot and bicycle traffic. So, the city of Bern acts kind of like a capital for Switzerland. That's where the parliament convenes, and its core city is about 140,000 people. The metro area is about 400,000 people, and it's a city that attracts a lot of commuters every day, so about 110,000 incoming commuters from the surrounding municipalities. The city has this very, I think it's iconic, this beautiful old town city center on the peninsula where the river Aare kind of snakes around. And then surrounding this old town, we have these different city quarters, neighborhoods that have a very different makeup. Some of them are more sort of upper class, rich areas. Some of them are maybe more students. Some of them are more kind of workers. So it creates these different quarters that are completely different in makeup and also history, and therefore also traffic situation. Politically, the city of Bern is very progressive. And in Switzerland, that means it's very progressive also in terms of green policies for sustainable mobility. So there is a kind of political stability when it comes to sustainable mobility, which is going to become relevant later. So the city of Bern decided to promote cycling, and it's worth just quickly reminding ourselves why that could be good or why we'd want to do that. One of the reasons is just sustainability. It's with the climate situation that we have to look for ways to reduce carbon emissions, and moving people from motorized traffic to bicycle is a great way to reduce emissions. It's good for health. It promotes activity. It reduces the pollution produced by cars. It reduces noise. It makes the city more livable. It's safer, and it's also very space and resource efficient compared to cars. If you look inside a city, especially at the space occupied by cars versus bicycles can create much denser and more livable environments. What's also especially true is it has the potential for being very convenient. If you think about a trip within a city like Bern, you could feasibly walk from one end of the city to the other in a reasonable amount of time, but you can very efficiently cycle from one end of the city to the other. And you could feasibly do this more efficiently than with a car, where you'd first have to get to your car and then drive somewhere through potentially traffic and then have to find a parking spot to put your car. So within a city, a bicycle can be basically the most convenient option for mobility. And so the city of Bern decided in 2015 to launch what we call the Bicycle Offensive, which is a coordinated kind of citywide initiative to specifically with one focused goal, but many methods to reach that goal. And the goal is to double the modal split share of bicycle trips of residents of the city. So when people decide to take a trip, that they decide to take the bicycle twice as many times as they did in the last available numbers at that point were from 2010. So in 2010, the modal split share was 11% bicycles in Bern. And the city decided to double this in 15 years to more than 20%. And so it's one goal, but it has many potential avenues for reaching that goal. And I listed some on the left there. The first thing people think of when they think, oh, promoting bicycle mobility would maybe be infrastructure, so bicycle paths, but there's many other things. There's providing parking so that when you reach your destination, you can actually put your bicycle somewhere and then reach a shop or the train station. We heard just before from the importance of train station parking. I'm going to get to that later. Bern implemented a bicycle sharing system. It launched several initiatives to kind of promote bicycle culture, promote bicycle use. And a big thing is that Bern is doing a lot to calm the traffic in the city, the motorized traffic in the city, so that the roads become more usable by other, more sustainable modes of transport. On the right, you kind of see that when we think of, oh, we want to promote bicycle use, the first thing we think of maybe could be just commuters or young, active people like students that might be incentivized to use the bicycle more, but it is, we call this concept kind of bicycle. It's the many modes of bicycle use. So you might encourage young children to play with bicycles. You might encourage school children to go to school by bicycle. You might have students and commuters that need better infrastructure or more coherent infrastructure to reach their destinations. But then you also have families which might have different requirements, like broader or more safe or more separated bicycle lanes so that they can use the bicycle lanes with their children that might be less safe on a bicycle, or where it's less safe to have them drive right next to a bus or some other major modes of traffic. You might think of transport and delivery, so economic activity within the city that is currently managed by lorries or larger cars that could be transitioned to more sustainable bicycle mobility. And you can think of leisure activity as well. So Switzerland has a first-class hiking network that links everywhere and that is highly used by people. And you can think of expanding the network for bicycle leisure trips as well. And finally, we have seniors, so older people which might have an increased requirement for safe or calm areas to use their bicycles, rather than like a high-speed lane that leads to the city center. So these all immediately provide avenues for what can we do to improve bicycle, but the reality for bicycles and increase the attractiveness of bicycles for as a mode of transportation. When it comes to infrastructure, 15 years, so the time set by the bicycle offensives, is not such a long time. The major construction projects that the city launches usually happen when something has to be built anyway, like for example, Bern now plans a major tram line between two parts of the city. The roads are going to be reconstructed and torn up, so you can plan there a bicycle component into it. It's kind of the right side, kind of a mid-long-term planning for bicycles. And that's then the important thing there is less to come up with ideas of how you could improve the situation for bicycles, because there are many cities in Europe that have, for example, in the Netherlands, that have high quality bicycle infrastructure. It's more a matter of having bicycle and foot infrastructure have a seat at the table and be given the importance that it actually has for the average citizen of the city, so that these interests are heard and that they are given a priority in those larger projects where you have many departments coming together and trying to formulate one solution for what a road looks like. And on the left, you have the things that the city was most able to do during the bicycle offensive is immediate measures. So cheap things like marking a new line on the road, changing signals, removing parking spaces, reducing the width of roads so that you can mark a bicycle lane, and all of these things. So this is something that the city was able to immediately launch into, using a dedicated fund for these measures, where they then didn't need to secure funding for each thing separately, but could just basically use a certain amount of money each year to really go into the streets as they existed and reprioritize mobility more towards bicycles. A big thing there is, we mentioned it earlier, or it was mentioned earlier, reducing existing parking spaces to make space for bicycle lanes. This is a classic example of something that kind of powers a virtuous cycle as well, where you move people from cars to bicycles, reducing car use, creating more space in the process for bicycle use. And this kind of goes into a topic where, in the end, high quality bicycle infrastructure creates more space also for users of cars. So it in the end, if the optimal amount of trips are taken by bicycle, everyone profits from it. It was mentioned earlier, again, in the train station mobility hub topic, that bicycle parking is a huge topic, because you need to give people a place to put their bicycle when they reach their destination. And this is also something that goes into space use. So you can remove one parking spot for cars and create 10 parking spots for bicycles in the same space. So that's kind of maybe in the general city area, but the city of Bern kind of prioritized making, creating 10,000 parking spots in parking stations at the train station, for example, surrounding the train station, so that people can enjoy this multimodal travel, where they might go to the train station, take a train somewhere else, come back in the evening, and then have this ability to return home with their bicycles. Bern has a partnership with Publibike, which is a bicycle sharing system company, where there are 200 stations with 1,600 bikes. I mean, these are just kind of random numbers, but the important thing is that it's also 50% electric bikes, to provide a low threshold way to quickly get around the city. And this is an excellent thing also for people maybe with not optimal mobility, so maybe people that are not so fit, because Bern is not quite as hilly as Lausanne, that was mentioned earlier, but it does have some elevation differences because of the river that snakes through it. You might have to descend some meters on one side of the river and then go back up the other side. And having an electric bike that just powers you through the city is an excellent way to get around. And with more than 1 million trips a year, this has been a big success and was now renewed for 5 more years, I think, or for several more years, and will be expanded also to the surrounding community, so that it even creates an even larger network where you can easily get around using this system. And the pricing for this is comparable to public transport. So sometimes it is actually just the most convenient and the fastest way to get around the city. Finally, there's a topic that maybe is not so obvious when you think of bicycle promotion, which is kind of promotion of bicycle culture. And maybe instead of spending millions on a separated bicycle lane somewhere, or only on spending on infrastructure, you can also spend very little amounts of money on something with a very high impact to promote the use of bicycles. For For example, the Bicycle Promotion sort of association provides bicycle courses for adults, where adults that may come from a background where they never cycled can learn to use a bicycle and maybe even acquire their first low-cost bicycle at a subsidized price so that they can kind of get into this culture that they are not familiar with. There's the Bern implemented a bicycle library, which is basically a place where you can, for very cheap, rent a bicycle so that you can get access to a bicycle if you don't have the financial means to buy yourself a new bicycle. There are in several green spaces around the city pump tracks for children where they can play and kind of get into using their bicycle for leisure activities. And this is something where with actually very little financial means you can kind of create and also with no great need for infrastructure coordination, where you might have some backlog in the civil engineering department. If you can't go and construct things, you can always still do these soft promotions of bicycle culture. And finally, we get to the topic of traffic calming, which is if you have a road in a neighborhood that doesn't have bicycle infrastructure, that doesn't have dedicated bike lanes or separated bike lanes, you can still create a much more pleasant environment for cycling and also for walking by simply reducing the speed of cars that are on the road. It's a huge difference in terms of noise, in terms of safety, in terms of subjective safety, especially whether the car that drives past you with a differential of 10 kilometers per hour versus 30 kilometers per hour. And so on this map, you can kind of see all the roads that Bern has implemented a speed limit of 30 kilometers per hour on. Those are the gray-black type roads. And in red, you see the neighborhoods that have democratically decided to initiate meeting zones, which is a street or inhabitants of a street can volunteer to collect signatures and then initiate a meeting zone, which is they can turn their street into pedestrian priority with a speed limit of 20 kilometers per hour. And this has been within the city of Bern a huge success. You can see that the large parts of the city that decided to kind of sign up to this system that allows people to then also kind of redesign their streets with more space for just also living there and having maybe some spaces where they can put a bench or zone out these kind of plazas for playing in the street and acquire the street for private use as well in a public space. And having these calm zones in the neighborhood then also allows us to say, okay, well, this neighborhood has nice connections to it. Maybe there's not then a lot of infrastructure necessarily within the neighborhood, but because it is so calmed and because there is pedestrian priority, the maybe motorized traffic is also calm to the degree where it is also pleasant for bicycles. And in terms of numbers, the bicycle offensive has been a large success. So since 2014, so Bern has some automated traffic counters integrated in the streets, where we can both count the number of cars in certain spaces and the number of bicycles. And on the green graph, you see that the number of bicycles at those stations that were measured has been increased by 60% since 2014, which has been a huge success. And because there has also been some progress made since 2010, before the bicycle offensive officially started, we now have a modal split of already 19% recorded in the last census that is recorded every 5 years. So we are very much on track of overshooting the target of a 20% modal split of bicycles by 2030. And this has been accompanied, as you can see in the graph in red, by a decrease within the city of motorized traffic. That is very much also a desired effect of this policy. But at the same time, there's a lot of room for improvement, because we also see in this modal split that a lot of the increase in bicycle use has come at the expense of public transport within the city and not in car use. So the modal split of cars has basically been steady at 22% throughout this entire time. And so there's still large potential for incentivizing people to move from car use to bicycle use, but it's on a good track. So thank you for your attention, and I'm happy to take any questions if there are any.
Florian, dziękuję bardzo. Florian, dziękuję bardzo za
Thank you very much
takie bardzo przyjazne
for
wprowadzenie do
this
tego, co
particularly
dzieje się
clear introduction to what
i
is happening in
zakończenie,
Bern,
pokazaniem, że to jest monitorowane.
and showing that it is monitored and it brings certain tangible effects. I would have a couple of questions to you, though. Firstly, a technical thing. If I understand correctly, these meeting zones, where you have the speed limit to 20 kilometers per hour, quite radical, they are created upon the initiative of the residents. So it's not the decision of the city administration, but it is the residents who have to collect signatures and appeal for that. And then upon their appeal, the city administration introduces such a zone. Have I understood correctly?
Yes. So generally, that's the case. Usually it's a local resident, or usually two parties, so two people in a street that come into contact with the traffic planning office, and they are then guided through this process by the traffic planning office. And once they have collected the signatures of more than half the people living in that street, which includes children from age 8, I think, then there are several meetings locally in the street that kind of help shape how the street should be redesigned. What are the requirements? What do people want? Maybe they want more space for playing in plazas. Maybe they just want speed reduction. It can be quite different. So then you can create these, what we call small meeting zones. In some areas of the city, especially kind of the young, very progressive parts of the city, there were so many meeting zones that were so close together that at some point the city decided to bunch them all together into large meeting zones. So there is kind of, there's both. But what we noticed is that when we did this bunching together into large meeting zones, the parts that were not initiated by locals then also didn't have this time to acquire or to really help design the street, and there was less support for it in those areas in the end compared to the ones which really could initiate it themselves. Because, for example, part of the design of these meeting zones is that you reduce foot crossings, so these zebra crossings, because they are not really required in a zone, or they're not. It doesn't make sense to say there's pedestrian priority everywhere and then make pedestrian priority crossings. And if that happens in a school zone, then it's really important that this design of the street really works. And if you just end up removing these pedestrian crossings for children in school zones without really the approval or the help of the locals, then you can really also confuse people and lead to misunderstandings. So we've been very careful kind of making these top-down decisions of these meeting zones and really making it a more democratic process.
Też jak powiedziałeś, w momencie, kiedy pojawia się taka inicjatywa,
yes, just as you said, when you have this initiative, we have to consult it with the residents and hold discussions what particular solutions could be introduced with regard to the organization of traffic and space. Two short questions. You mentioned the liquidation of parking spaces. You said that the liquidation of parking spaces, which is painful for the car owners, is actually to their benefit. because cycling and cycling infrastructure helps them to switch to bikes. So the other drivers have better conditions, which is convincing, but in the longer term. But how does it work in practice? Do people really understand and accept it? Or is it rather conflicting situations where such decisions are met with a certain resistance? And how do you overcome this resistance if there is? And also, you mentioned the car sharing services. Does this system, is this system financed, co-financed from public funds, the city, or is it only based on other sources of financing? And we have some questions in the chat.
Yeah, so I'm going to go through the questions one by one, maybe.
Good.
For sure, there is large resistance to removing car parking spots within the city from a minority of people, because more than half the population of Bern, for example, doesn't own a car. And for sure, the city is very progressive when it comes to climate action and sustainable mobility. But still, there is the right for people to object legally to changes involving any parking space. And so if someone objects to something, there's going to be a legal process for resolving these conflicts. And that provides a huge kind of implicit barrier towards removing parking spots within the city. At the same time, the city of Bern has 140,000 residents and 100,000 parking spots, 86,000 of which are on private property. So the 16,000 parking spots that Bern has on public roads are actually a small minority of the available parking spots that people could use. And the plan of the city is to reduce this number by half by, I think, 2040. So it is a small chunk of the overall parking that we're actually removing, with a huge benefit for the usability of the roads for all modes of traffic. So, but this has to be a very coordinated effort. So we have statistics that tell us what's the ratio of the parking cards compared to parking spots in certain regions of the city, and there's big differences there. So there's some parts of the city where this ratio is very high. So there we then try not to remove parking spots and try to find measures that don't do something. And in others, it's less than one. So there are more car parking spots than people that would want to use them. So there we feel very liberal in just removing stuff proactively and kind of getting to a ratio that we find acceptable. And so we have a target of having this ratio of cards to spaces of about 1.2, and then we can use this kind of to guide our decision making regarding that. And if people object to it legally and they are then we also don't want to force people into traffic planning that they don't want. So if a street, especially then if a neighborhood organization says, "Hey, stop, we don't want to remove more parking," then we just don't do it. But we might make our best effort to convince them that, hey, your neighborhood would really profit from a bicycle route along this corridor, and just try to work it out with the neighborhood as best as possible.
Florian, jeszcze jedno pytanie o właśnie
So one more question concerning the financing, the car sharing system. Do you know if this system is financed or co-financed from the public sources or not?
Yeah, I'm sure it's co-financed. I'm not sure what the percentage is, though. There are for sure also these, what I can tell you is that there are these programs where the bike sharing system cooperates with large employers, like, for example, the city or the hospital, which also has like 10,000 jobs in the city, that then subsidize this bicycle sharing system for employees, for example. That also really helps push this system to be more widely accepted.
To jest coś, co Będziemy kończyć odpowiedzi, chociaż powiem tak, zauważyłeś słusznie.
As you have rightly mentioned that in some cities, there is also a system supported by large employers. It's not only the public budget, the administration, but also large employers who identify with the city and want to support their employees. They want to have them healthier, provide them more available, accessible transport, also for the sake of the climate. So this can also be helpful. And one more question from the chat. Do the streets with the speed limit with 30 kilometers per hour are narrowed, or are there other elements there that kind of enforce the calming of traffic?
Yeah, for sure, just putting a speed limit does not work in our experience. People react to the design of the street and not really the marked speed limit. So we try as much as possible to narrow the street, do kind of use this as an opportunity to put a bicycle lane or other things like that. And then sometimes we really do struggle on streets where we have where we have major needs for public transportation. So where large buses, for example, go through, because there we have sometimes issues to really try to narrow the streets because we have these requirements from the public transport. And there sometimes we struggle to make this work. But it is always a desire to redesign the street in such a way that people naturally drive 30 kilometers per hour. And it's actually also partly a requirement for introducing 30 kilometers per hour that people don't still already drive 50. So if a street is always very fast, then we have less of an incentive to try and lower it because it is kind of needed there. And if we can show that, on this street, people don't drive 50 kilometers per hour anyway, they drive more like 30, then we can introduce it more easily as well. So it's kind of a bit of a circular logic, but it is, it's always a design question.
Bardzo dziękuję. Bardzo dziękuję za
thank you so much for also sharing your personal experience. I know it's part of your life as well. So thank you so much for having you with us. And right now, we are approaching the end of our seminar. We have a time for some information, some thanks, and summary. I will not dare to summarize these great presentations. I know that I have to chew on them a bit more, but what was striking, I think you will agree, is that in all these activities, there is one conclusion that strikes me, that managing mobility nowadays is the art of coordination. It's the art of connecting different partners with different interests, with different time perspectives, different spatial perspectives. And this has been clear since the very beginning. When Alberto Monticone mentioned how the Swiss system works, showing us how important is the railway network, which is much denser than the road network. We also see that these one-ticket systems that combine many options, which is not only more comfortable but also cheaper. 20 agreements on fares to emit one transport card, which allows the users to travel across different areas, different municipalities. And this popularity is not only related to the infrastructure itself, but also organization based on collaboration of different partners, different entities. And interesting information about the sectoral transport mobility hubs, which are interesting, and a great presentation about the tram system in Lausanne. which shows us how many different funding sources and entities have been engaged. From the federal level, who make final decisions, approve the project, through the cantonal level, which is the managing entity, and the local administration. And how diverse is the financing, different with regard to investment projects, different with regard to operational projects. What was also striking to me is what Alberto mentioned, that in many cities, vast majority of space is for non-motorized transport. I'm sure you've noticed that in Lausanne, the railway track was also adapted for buses, so it provides for a better use of urban space. In the second presentation, when Isabel Scherer presented how it is combined at the federal level, the spatial planning and mobility, she pointed to one of the challenges of this planning. That is, spatial planning is generally a competence of the cantonal, regional authorities. How can it be coordinated at the federal level of spatial planning, where we have a strong emphasis on entering new areas with planning mobility or transport in narrow sense. And a very interesting experience how it is done on the basis of agglomeration projects, with 4 criteria of efficiency, evaluation, improvement, safety, ecological impact, environmental impact. And the 4th criterion is how these solutions support the development towards the city center, so against spreading the city. So not only the quantity, but also the quality of open spaces. How the quality of transport can lead us to the improved quality of city urban space. These longer time perspectives, 4-year intervals, when these new projects are submitted and evaluated on the basis of agglomeration, and then approved, chosen, and implemented with financing, which is a very important element at the federal level for those solutions that serve the agglomerations. So the cities with particular importance from the perspective of transport, where the local agglomeration resources may not be enough. Philipp Stadler-Benz told us how mobility hubs are created, and also highlighted how different interests, how many interests can be combined in such a small space. He showed 5 different functions connected with different interests, with a priority given, of course, to the transport layout, but it's also the real estate market, the creation of the identity of a place. Transport hubs, mobility hubs are what we can say as special characteristic points of each neighborhood. And you also mentioned one important thing, that the creation of mobility hubs is the art of combining different interests. So it is important to specify the crucial functions and this functional model where different partners collaborate to reach shared solutions, which would then translate into effectiveness. In the last presentation by Florian Willer, what was the most interesting to me in particular is how to create the culture of cycling. I discussed it with Florian. We spoke about Jan Gehl, an architect from Copenhagen, who said that when in one of the cities they created cycling infrastructure, they created great cycling roads, cycling paths, but there was no culture of cycling. In Bern, it's also a challenge you mentioned. Not only the infrastructure, but to promote cycling. You mentioned the organization of calming the traffic. So it's not only the signs, but also other elements. And another crucial thing is the dialogue with the residents, inclusion of the residents, not only providing a list of signatures, but the list of signatures is just the beginning for further dialogue that helps specify those solutions that would best address the expectations of the residents. So these are just a few main conclusions and thoughts from today's meeting. I'm sure that the participants do not regret having spent these more than 2 hours with us, and I would like to invite you to the forthcoming meeting within the framework of the Polish-Swiss City Development Program, the Local Development Forum, the 28th of May, and we'll speak about the energy transition. So this is what is a big thing for many cities nowadays, not only from the perspective of safety, of energy supply, quality of life of the residents, but also limiting the costs which are related with it. Finishing today's seminar, I would like to thank our Swiss partners, Maren Kordman, who welcomed us in the beginning. We didn't mention Nina Dausch, who was helping us with contacting and choosing our representatives, and Franklin Klink, who helps to create this 3-person team of our partners in Norway, are great partners, thanks to whom we have access to the knowledge of best experts, whom we can invite here. So I would like to thank all of you very much for that. I'd like to thank the team from the Association of the Polish Cities, our sign language interpreters, our Polish-English interpreters. I'd like to thank the Ministry for the acceptance and agreement to continue this project, because I believe that this is of particular importance for the local administration, and your acceptance, your approval is crucial here, and also your presence here, which we mentioned already in the beginning, opening the seminar. I would also like to invite you to fill in the evaluation poll survey. You have the link in the chat. It's very important for us, since these seminars do not provide us with any other possibility for interactive communication apart from the chat. So we want to improve the quality of these seminars. And also one communication. It is there in the chat, but since we were asked, I'd like to stress and highlight it, that you're invited for the information online meeting concerning the call for Urbacto transfer network, and also an overview of different proposals of the EU on the 6th of May from 9 to 11:30 a.m. So I believe it will be a useful source of information, also to find contacts to other cities from Europe, because I believe that you've already seen Switzerland can be an example to follow for us, but we're partners in many ways. And I believe that the exchange of experience is not only helpful to us, but also to our Swiss partners. I believe that it's a win-win situation, but we need meetings for that. Our forums provide just one of the possibilities. Once again, thank you to all of you for being here, and see you on the 28th of May.